Commander Catherine Velshara had seen war in all its forms. For 3 centuries, she had commanded fleets across the Galactic Coalition, witnessed the fall of star systems, and ordered strikes that vaporized entire moons. War, she believed, was a calculated equation: logistics, firepower, and strategic positioning. It was clean, mathematical, predictable. That belief shattered the day she met Harold Chen. The human sat across from her in the war room of the Coalition flagship Eternal Vigilance, his uniform crisp despite having just arrived from Earth's contested borders. His dark eyes held something that made Catherine's fortune but heart skip not fear, but a depth of experience that seemed impossible for someone who had lived barely 40 standard years. Commander Velshara, Harold began, his voice measured, with respect. You don't understand what you're asking. Catherine's translucent skin flushed violet with irritation. Captain Chen, I'm asking your species to fight. The Kriltha swarm has breached the outer systems. We need every capable warrior. No. Harold leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. You're asking us to go to war under Coalition rules. Limited engagement protocols, proportional response doctrines, designated combat zones. He paused. You're asking us to fight with one hand tied behind our backs. Those protocols, Catherine said stiffly, prevent unnecessary casualties and maintain galactic stability. Harold's laugh was bitter. Commander, do you know why humanity took 400 years to reach the stars? It wasn't because we lacked the technology. We had nuclear fission before we left our home planet's surface. We had the means to build generation ships centuries before we did. Then why? Because we were too busy fighting ourselves. Harold stood, walking to the viewport where 1,000 stars glittered against the void. We spent centuries perfecting the art of killing our own kind. World wars, genocides, conflicts that consumed continents. We didn't reach for the stars because we were too busy trying to extinguish each other. Catherine had read the histories, but hearing it from a human made it visceral. Your point, Captain. My point is that humanity knows war in a way the Coalition species don't. You fight for territory, for resources, for strategic advantage. We fight for survival. We fight to win. And when we truly commit, when you remove our restraints, we become something that scares even us. 3 weeks later, Catherine understood the Kriltha had pushed through the Coalition's defensive perimeter like it was tissue paper. 17 colonies fell in 6 days. The Coalition's carefully calculated counteroffensives failed, one after another. The swarm didn't follow predictable patterns. They adapted, evolved, consumed. The Coalition Council met in emergency session. The vote was narrow, the debate fierce. But ultimately, desperation won. Humanity was given authorization to engage without standard tactical restrictions. Harold's response was immediate. Thank you, Council. Now get out of our way. Catherine watched from her command deck as the human fleet emerged from Earth's stellar neighborhood. They came not in the organized battle formations the Coalition favored, but in chaotic waves that seemed to defy military logic. Their ships were smaller, faster, and disturbingly willing to take damage that would make any Coalition captain retreat. The first engagement occurred at the Theta Persei colony. Catherine monitored the tactical display, expecting to witness a conventional battle. What she saw instead defied everything she knew. The human ships didn't engage in broadside exchanges. They dove into the Kriltha swarm like predators, using unpredictable vectors that should have resulted in collisions but somehow didn't. They fired weapons that seemed designed more to cause pain than destruction, cluster munitions that spread like infection through the thermal weapons that burned slowly rather than vaporizing quickly. They're not trying to destroy the swarm, Catherine's tactical officer observed, confusion in his voice. They're trying to terrify them. Harold's voice crackled over the command channel. Commander, you wanted to see humanity released. Watch closely. A dozen human ships suddenly broke formation, diving directly into a Kriltha nest cluster that had been considered impregnable. Catherine's breath caught. It was suicide. The swarm would consume them in seconds. But the humans didn't attack the cluster from outside. They breached it. On her screens, Catherine watched in horror as human marines wearing armor that looked medieval compared to Coalition technology boarded. They fought in corridors too narrow for proper combat, using projectile weapons that should have been obsolete millennia ago. They didn't just kill the Kriltha. They hunted them through their own ships, chamber by chamber, nest by nest. It was brutal, intimate, personal, and it was working. The Kriltha, who had never retreated in recorded history, began to withdraw. Not from superior firepower. The Coalition had firepower. They retreated from fear, from facing an enemy that fought with a savagery they couldn't comprehend. that seemed to relish close combat in ways that violated every survival instinct. Harold appeared on her view screen hours later, his armor scorched and dented. Behind him, Catherine could see the gutted remains of a Krilthor hive ship. "Commander, the Theta Persei sector is secure." "Captain Chen," Catherine said slowly, "your casualties acceptable." His face was hard. "We knew what we signed up for. That style of combat, it's barbaric." "Yes." Harold didn't flinch from the accusation. "That's exactly what it is. And that's why it works. The Coalition fights war like it's a chess match. We fight it like it's survival. Because for most of our history it was." Over the following months, Catherine watched humanity drive back the Krilthor swarm. Not through technological superiority or greater numbers, but through sheer, unrelenting aggression. They took losses that would have broken Coalition fleets, but kept pushing forward. They adapted tactics mid-battle with a creativity born from generations of fighting themselves. They showed no mercy because they had learned, the hard way, that mercy in war was often just slow motion, suicide. The swarm eventually withdrew from Coalition space entirely. Intelligence suggested they had classified humanity as an extinction-level threat, something to be avoided rather than consumed. In her ready room, Catherine poured 2 glasses of Terran whiskey, a human tradition she'd adopted. Harold accepted his with a nod. "I thought I knew war," Catherine said quietly. "I was wrong." Harold swirled his glass, staring into the amber liquid. "Be grateful you didn't know it the way we did, Commander. We learned these lessons by nearly destroying ourselves. Multiple times." He looked up, his eyes haunted. "The restraints you put on us, the protocols you made us follow, we built those for ourselves first, because we know what we're capable of when those restraints come off. And that's what makes you terrifying," Catherine said. "Not your weapons or your tactics. It's that you know exactly how monstrous you can be, and you choose not to be usually." Harold raised his glass. "To civilization, Commander. May we always remember why we fight to preserve it." Catherine clinked her glass against his, understanding for the first time why humanity had been so reluctant to join the Coalition's war. They hadn't been afraid of losing, they'd been afraid of winning. The end.